France-Pakistan gateway to Eurasia. Ladies and gentlemen, it is interesting that Eurasia is the largest continent on the face of Earth, comprising probably of all of Europe and Asia. And we have heard a lot about Indo-Pacific, but a lot of people think that Eurasia is going to be much larger than Indo-Pacific and also a game changer. So China's growing gravity across Eurasia was a major theme of 2022. Will it carry through in the coming years? A report that came out from the World Economic Forum said it won't be a Chinese year, it will be multipolar. We have yet to see that. Andrew Small, the author of No Limits, the inside story of China's war with the West, talks about Moscow and China's relationship. And they say that there is just one thing we take care of when we deal with Moscow. And that is that we treat Moscow with respect. I think it's not just Moscow, it's countries across the globe that want to be treated with respect. And this desire for respect is increasing in the East. Has the fulcrum of growth shifted from the West to the East? We've been hearing about it for almost a decade now. Is it playing out into a reality is yet to be seen. They say perhaps a new Cold War is upon us. What is this new Cold War? Is this the one we lived through? People say it is going to be very different. There is going to be a huge crisscross of geo-economics and geopolitics. And the decoupling people think about is not even an option. A lot of other people are of the opinion that there can be, at best, competition between China and the United States of America. There can be cooperation, but confrontation is not an option. However, while all this is happening, new blocs are emerging. And in these, you have what is now seen as an emerging new theme of geopolitics and geoeconomics, and that is the region, Eurasia. So we have representation from France here, from the Harvard University actually, who we're going to come and speak about how they see it, and is France really the gateway to Eurasia, and what is the role of Pakistan in all of this? So we have Mr. Aisha, who's going to shed light on that. So I would now like to invite Air Commodore Sadid Malik, who is the Secretary General of KCFR and CEO, to talk a bit about KCFR, the organization who's hosted this lunch for you. So, Lisa, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Homa Bakai. Assalamu alaikum. Guten Tag. Bonjour. And good morning. Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure and an honor for me to welcome you all at this august occasion. Karachi Council on Foreign Relations is a simile of Chicago Council, but that is a century old, and we are very young, just about 19 years old. We deliberate in the fields of foreign affairs, economic affairs, education, and etc. Our founding chairman was the Chief Justice, late Chief Justice and then Governor Sindh, Mr. Justice Sayyid-ur-Rahman Siddiqui. And then we had Chief of Naval Staff, who is also an ambassador later on after his retirement, Admiral Shahid Karimullah. Then we had another ambassador, Mr. Shahid. Then we have our former chairman, who is now our veteran chief, Mr. Ikram Sahib. And at the moment, our chairman is Admiral Khalid Mir. We have a few members of the Board of Governors here, And apart from them, we have got about 17 members of the Board of Governors. So far, we have had about over 300 guests from abroad and local, thinkers, and they come and discuss with us, and we publish our thoughts in our journal every 6 months. One of the prominent people who have addressed us are President of Pakistan, foreign ministers, nearly all foreign ministers, one after the other, have addressed us, education ministers, and on the topics that we deliberate, energy, etc., we get them. In addition, people from foreign countries, whenever they come and discuss with us everything, whatever they have about Pakistan. Our members are generally retired ambassadors, retired admirals, generals, Air Force, Air Marshals, and prominent think tanks like businessmen and industrials, etc. We have recently signed an MOU with a prominent university of France, Université de Le Havre, and they are interested to do the works over here. And according to the works, one of our members of the Board of Governors has offered them an area, very large area, for establishing a university where he will construct the infrastructure, building, etc., and provide the furniture, etc. And this university, this is now Lahore University in the council of academic council, and hopefully soon we'll have that university portion in Pakistan too. I may continue for some more time, but however I know we are short of time, and if there was later on some questions, we would love to reply to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sadiq Malik. I would also like to add, I wear several hats. So one of them is that I'm associated with KCFR for something like 15 years now, but I'm also a rector of a university, a new university that has come up in Karachi, Sindh, which is MITE, Millennium Institute of Technology and Entrepreneurship, and we also have the honor of having an MOU with Lahore University, where exchange of students, faculty, and other collaborations will happen. And with that, I will invite Jean Noel Castorio to come and speak to us. I hope I got your name here.
First and foremost, let me express my heartfelt thanks to Pathfinder Group and Mr. Segal for their invitation. I am truly honored to speak to this distinguished gathering on behalf of the French University world. As Prime Vice President of the University of Le Havre, I should first like to say a few words about the establishment I'm so proud to represent here. The history of our university is closely linked to that of the city around it, Le Havre, which was created from scratch at the beginning of the 16th century by King François I as Paris' gateway to the ocean. I beg to forgive this short digression. I realized I should have started saying that I'm a historian, so you will have historical explanations. The city of Le Havre, which was virtually erased to the ground during the World War II, was then totally rebuilt by French architect Auguste Perret. It is now inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List for its typical post-war architecture, and has established itself as the main French port for goods transport. The city, badly hit by the economic downturn at the end of the 70s, has been back on the road to prosperity over the last 3 decades. Aropa, the group formed by the ports of Paris, Rouen and Le Havre, is today the 5th largest European port, covering 2/3 of the container traffic of France and over 1/3 of the oil traffic. The dynamism of the city, epitomized by the figure of its mayor, Mr. Edouard Philippe, who was the former Prime Minister of France, is reflected in the industrial facilities recently established by major multinationals such as Siemens or Total Energy. Created in 1984, the University of Le Havre has, over the years, become one of the main research centers on port and maritime questions. Indeed, it is now the French university with the largest number of researchers working on such issues. Thanks to the Institute of Superior Logistique, des études supérieures en logistique, the Higher Institute of Logistical Studies, which was founded in 1984, our university trains logistic engineers from the whole world to very high standards. Opened onto the Atlantic Ocean via the channel, the University of Le Havre has, as it is well quite naturally, an international vocation. It has indeed, among French universities, one of the highest proportion of foreign students, 22%, as against 13% nationally. For historical reasons, most of the students come from Africa and East Asia. As a matter of fact, Le Havre has the Asian branch of Sciences Po Paris, the prestigious Paris Institute of Political Sciences. As we all know, 40 is an age when you can start to take stock and also confidently envision future prospects on the basis of previous experience, of past successes, as well as mistakes. With the support of the Normandy region and its president, Mr. Hervé Morin, former minister, and also with the support of Mr. Edouard Philippe, regional and local authorities also, and the large companies established in Le Havre, the University of Le Havre has initiated a deep process of change, which rests on the idea that it is now time for it to assume a new dimension, thus making it both, the #1 French university specializing in maritime issues, and more broadly, one of the major European and global universities working on such issues. This transformation is based on the expertise the university has gained in 3 main domains: maritime and port questions, as previously mentioned, energy transition, especially the development of renewable energy sources and the reduction of greenhouse gas production, and finally, urban resilience, a vital question for cities such as Le Havre, faced with the likely prospect of being submerged by the ocean in a not too distant future. For 20 years now, University of Le Havre has been a member of a network of port universities called the Geo-8, which it has the honor to chair. Geo-8 includes the University of Hull in the United Kingdom, Magdeburg in Germany, INA in Korea, Xiamen in China, Paris in Malaysia, and Fortaleza in Brazil. The overhaul of our university has been designed together with the overhaul of Geo-8 around the same topics, with a view to making this network of more than 150,000 students and 10,000 researchers one of the major global networks specializing in marine and port research. By mutual agreement, Geo-8 members universities have decided to open the network to other international coastal establishments. Such an opening is a requirement if Geo-8 is to reach its goal of beginning a structured network on a global scale. Within this context, the recent partnership proposal by the University of Karachi to University Le Havre is most welcome, as are the memoranda of understanding recently signed with a number of Pakistani establishments and with the MITA. I am sure, however, that we have to go even further and faster, and I hope this gathering will act as an opportunity to lay the foundation of this enhanced academic collaboration. I thank you very much for your attention.
I'm going to invite Yen Alex from La Havre University to elaborate further on this academic collaboration and, of course, also talk a little bit about how France-Pakistan gateways to EurAsia.
My name is Yen Alex. I am doctor in geography and economy, and I am the general manager of a think tank in France called SACC, which have been launched almost a decade ago by the Port of Le Havre Authority. And we will discuss today about how Pakistan would be the next door for us. And I will explain why. So, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and friends, I could not initiate my speech without expressing my deepest and most sincere thanks to Mr. Segal. Thank you, Mr. Segal, for his confidence in the SACC Foundation and its general delegate that I am. This opportunity is truly and historically unique and constitute, I guess, and I hope so, the beginning of a great and wonderful intellectual and human journey. This would not have been possible without the involvement and commitment of the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and more particularly, Mr. Yves Mainville. Thank you, Yves. Yves Mainville is a special man. You know more than me that he is the man who knows better than anyone how to create bridges to connect the right people at the right time on the right place, like today. Thank you for that, Yves. And I guess that we particularly need these crucial moments of exchanges and sharing as the pandemic and military crisis since 2019 have plunged capitalist nomadism into a form of political perplexity, rarely experienced in the contemporary history. Nation-states and their leaders are learning that cheerful and profitable globalization can disintegrate very fast due to the combination of phenomena which have only few links between them. Consumers are confirmed that energy is and will be one of the key factors for tomorrow world domination. And the population learns that logistics is not simply a support service for production, distribution, consumption, but a complex organization that shapes our lifestyles. Since 2011, the SACC Foundation I represented today has been anticipating through its prospective and strategic analysis these trends that are reshaping the world. SACC is a French think tank, as I said before, initiated by the port and the logistics community of Le Havre in France, with the objective of supporting and developing applied research in logistics, ports, and maritime. Since 2011, SACC has published more than 15,000 pages, absolutely free of charge. You can download that on our website for free. If you won't drop your credit card, it's for a gift for my wife, but not for a book. So this French think tank has published 25 books with the support of over more than 400 plus experts around the world, including 72 plus countries. So we work on the 5 continents, but we are here today because Central Asia has become one of the most active regions of our network since the launch of 2014 of a working group in Almaty, Kazakhstan, under the leadership of 2 exceptional professors. Miss Koralai Baizakova, because in that area of the world, I've seen that women are dominating the world, especially in Central Asia, I would say. maybe, yeah, even in my house. So, Koralai Baizakova from Al-Farabi National University in Almaty, Kazakhstan, and my dear friend colleague Pierre Chabal, who would be the next speakers, I guess, from the French delegation, who is the director of the Laboratoire L'Exfim. So, and we discussed since 2014 about logistics and diplomacy couple. This couple appears immediately as intellectual evidence to debate in a multidisciplinary approach on international relations and regional dynamic. We also discussed about the condition of cooperation and transport networks. We focus more and more about information exchange and cross-border management. We as well deal with historical legacies and ideological perception, which is quite relevant in that area of the world, cultural barrier and bilateral, multilateral ambition, and so on. So, with conferences and seminars held every year in Le Havre, Almaty, Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia, Bishkek, Tashkent, next week in Dushanbe, we will have the great honor to be in Dushanbe next week, and soon, thanks to Mr. Segal and his friends in Islamabad and Karachi, we are together crafting the public decision in logistics that remain the heart of our work. The logistics and diplomacy couple constitute a challenge because it requires thinking up new methodologies in order to evaluate all the processes and the actions that contribute to building structuring logistics infrastructures and services in your own territories. The objective is to provide knowledge and know-how that will become useful to political decision makers responsible for future national logistics projection in Central Asia. These prospective and strategic activities are established in the field and with fruitful and intense dialogue with all the stakeholders, and I would say as well shareholders, whatever they are from the public or the private side. The SACC Foundation has been invited today because we believe, and we share that belief with Mr. Segal, in the importance of academic and scientific cooperation in the service of politics, social economy, and logistics. SACC will soon be in Pakistan to extend the scope of the Asia-Europe Research Network, with aims of implementation of practical and pragmatic solutions. Under the supervision of Pierre Chabal, Korarai, Baizakova, and many others, and I hope you would be in our dream team today, we will publish the best Pakistani experts. Like in that book, it's going to be the volume 2 of the book we have already released, and we will get all those expertise for feeding the thought until the case of the Port of Le Havre, of course. And not only dedicated for the Central Asia experts. We are creating bridges between cultures and between knowledge. And I do believe, as a representative as well of the Port of Le Havre, the main gateway for Central Asia, as well as for the American continent, because we are the last port to be called when you leave Europe, and we are the first port to be called by ships coming from Karachi or from Guadalajara. So it is important to conclude by that, and I hope that you will collectively share my thoughts. We are together today consolidating the link between France and Pakistan, the supply chain future connectivity between Central Asia and the Port of Le Havre, and moreover, and I would conclude by those words, finally the friendship between people motivated by the advancement of humanity. Many thanks for your kind attention.
Academic collaboration for a country like Pakistan, where transfer of technology happens, is critical. It's critical for perhaps you, and it's critical for us. Because in this fragmented world, we need academicians and the civil society to come together to make sure there's these fault lines to not become gaping holes. So thank you for your talk. And may I now invite the third person from Lahore University, Pierre Chabal.
Assalamu alaikum. Ich wünsche euch alle einen guten Nachmittag und ich möchte auch Englisch reden. So, my name is Pierre Chabal. If we must introduce ourselves, Doctor in Political Science, Doctor habilitated in International Relations, Director of the Lex Research Center, and co-founder of the Center for European Law at Al-Farabi International University. That's done. Thank you very much. Dear Sir Ikram Segal, dear host Ikram Segal Sahib, to you today as a Frenchman born in the 20th century in Western Eurasia, addressing you in Switzerland in the still early 21st century about Eurasia. What can I say that may be more than my expression of admiration to you for making this Davos meeting possible? My task is made all the more difficult since I'm just a simple academic at one remote from the whirlwinds of active politics and executive decision-making elites. During my West European life, I have acquired a few diplomas and the ensuing illusions that I was acquiring knowledge indeed, that I had gathered knowledge. I passed one after the other from primary school to an active directorship of a research center, a number of stages based on, so it seemed, acquiring knowledge and on acquiring would-be capacities to perform duties. This was largely before I began traveling extensively in EurAsia, from France to Korea and Turkey, then to Mongolia, Kazakhstan, China and Japan, Russia and Malaysia, Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan, all the while hopping from time to time to other European and Atlantic countries. My gratefulness is therefore immense towards you, people from Asia, my colleagues in East Asia and Central Asia, for making my enlightenment possible. Is enlightenment too strong a word? Yes, if you think that I consider myself as enlightened. But no, if you accept that as is the case, I consider that I was exposed to the bright and brilliant radiations of Asia-based suggestions of what I am. Of what I am as a French and what I am vis-à-vis Eurasia at large, it is this capacity as a thick-headed frog exposed to the splendid minds of the East that I have learned so much. I first encountered the hiatus of being exposed to the nomadic minds of Asia, whereas the sedentary minds, the former nomads of Turkey and Korea, or the moving minds of the still nomadic spirits of the Mongols, the Kazakhs, and the Kyrgyz. I learned how relative can be what we hold as certain, that my Western views were mostly inadequate. For instance, when it came to such a deep structuring concept as time. Time structures the Western mind, so much so that the clock has become the symbol of capitalist constructivism. Whereas I was exposed, first in Mongolia, to a very simple truth. What matters is less when than what. For instance, especially in Mongolia, if a friend comes late to a meeting, what matters is not that he shows or she shows up late after the time indicated, but the fact that friendship makes him or her show up at all. I believe that in the West we have lost something that is still present in the East. Namely, we have lost the immediacy, what the East treasures as the open future. In the West, we want, we achieve, we forget. In the East, you hope, you cherish, and you remember. There is a marked difference. A difference probably as great as that between nomadic nations, that always were the best conquerors, and the sedentary nations that proved the most dedicated administrators. But dedication is not equal to civilization. Then we end on differences. Do they make it impossible for Eurasians to construct their future together? No, but provided that the mind remains open to the fact that the differences we see in the other are beautiful, and that they are a source of constant betterment for self. The concept of Eurasia is doomed if it consists of the confrontation of differences. The concept of Eurasia is a powerful force of the long history, l'histoire longue, Jean-Noël, if it consists of the preliminary acceptance that the other is a precondition of the realization of the self. For your elegant and kind attention, thank you very much.
May I now invite our next speaker, our very own Ambassador Aisha Faruqi. She is serving in Ireland right now. My interaction with Aisha go a long way back. I would ask her all the provocative questions on television, and she chose never to answer me. She's very good, she's a fantastic diplomat. She got away every time. But what I really want to tell you about today is that Aisha has been working quietly for Pakistan for many years. She's one of the most celebrated women diplomats in Pakistan's Foreign Office. And she's also working to promote this whole concept of EurAsia and Pakistan's role in it. Pakistan has the distinction of being a zipper state, a Brit state, and I still think it has the golden chair. So what Aisha, I would, of course, you have something prepared, but what I would like to perhaps elaborate upon, I'd like you to elaborate upon is that we were largely akin to SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation. Is EurAsia a step forward? Is more happening? Is there potential? Because it's huge, it's almost like a paradigm shift. And is there potential? Can this really happen? So over to you, Aisha.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bakai, for a very warm and generous introduction. My thanks go out to Ikram Sahib, of course, and KCFR for inviting me. It's an honor to be part of this conversation. I have some prepared remarks because I thought the subject is important and serious enough to devote some serious reflection on what we mean when we talk about Eurasia and Pakistan's role and place in it. I think the dialogue on Eurasia, the initiative taken, makes an important contribution to the contemporary global discourse on the unfolding geopolitical order. It is of great interest to all of us in our different capacities as policymakers, academics, businessmen, and citizens of these regions who desire peace, progress, and prosperity for our nations. Most of us agree that contemporary geopolitics is characterized by instability and chaos. The old order that had been established in the post-Soviet era is now transitioning out. What will the new order look like is unclear. However, what it offers is the potential of either great creativity or great crisis. New centers of powers are emerging, and we're all familiar with that conversation, be it China or Eurasia. Thus, multipolarity is likely to be the new norm. As you may be aware, that Eurasia refers more to a political and cultural construct that seeks to find lines of geographical convergence between Europe and Asia, rather than a neatly defined geographic space. Along these converging lines, Pakistan finds itself in the heart of the Eurasian region. Geographically, historically, culturally, and civilizationally, Pakistan is a part of the spatial continuum that we call the Eurasian heartland. Since ancient times, the ethos of the land that constitutes contemporary Pakistan is characterized by qualities of tolerance, generosity, hospitality, and connectivity for travelers and traders. These values are intrinsic to Pakistani culture. It is therefore no surprise that Pakistan finds itself as an important member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or SCO. It has close political and economic relations with the Central Asian countries and an all-weather strategic partnership with China. Pakistan's membership of SCO is a natural and logical corollary of our geostrategic location. In the past 2 decades, since its establishment, the SCO has carved a niche for itself in the pantheon of modern multilateral organizations and has become an important trans-regional organization. Today, it arouses both interest and curiosity from those that are within it and those that are watching from the outside. So, just wanted to give you a few statistics. Cumulatively, SCO member states comprising China, Russia, Pakistan, India, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Iran, and Belarus as full members comprise phenomenal resources of oil and gas, minerals, precious metals, food grain, and a technologically advanced human resource. Altogether, SCO is home to 41% of the world population and brings together 23% of the global GDP. According to one estimate, it brings to, SCO comprises a 22 trillion economy altogether. Intra-SCO trade is over 400 billion. Out of this, China's share is 40%, Russia 28%, India 20%, Kazakhstan 8%, Pakistan about 4%, followed by Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. Beyond our region, Pakistan has also long enjoyed a strategic partnership with European countries and the EU, individually and bilaterally. With EU, we celebrate 60 years of a partnership. It remains one of our largest trading and investment partners, and we share common values of democracy, rule of law, governance, human rights, and a free market economy. This strategic partnership with EU countries has yielded positive results for both sides, especially in the economic domain, where the GSP plus tariff-free arrangement over the past 10 years has helped both sides progress economically. Ladies and gentlemen, diplomacy, in my view, is truly the art of connecting people, cultures, and countries. And Pakistan offers that space as a bridge to connect the two parts of Eurasia, the Europe and the Asian parts. Thus, our participation in the BRI and SCO, as well as our long-standing relations with the EU, are not mutually exclusive. These are times of multiple crises, or polycrisis, as we learned this morning, of which climate change and disruption of the global supply chain are the two biggest and most urgent manifestations. These global challenges require global responses in a multipolar world. Pakistan, in principle, does not believe in bloc politics, and we think that the era of Cold War divisions is long over. In recent times, as you may be aware, Pakistan has also been described as the great connector. In a recent piece in the Atlantic Council magazine stated that at the crossroads of the abundant resources of Central Asia and the Middle East and the lucrative markets of China and India, Pakistan has the potential to play a significant connecting role that enables broader regional interdependency while boosting domestic economic prospects. I'm also very heartened to learn about the partnerships and academic exchanges between universities in France and Pakistan that are at a nascent stage but will grow forward further as we develop this dialogue on Eurasia. Academic exchanges and capacity building of Pakistani youth in supply chain management and logistics management would be a useful and practical form of the objectives and efforts of the Eurasia dialogue. I believe it has the ability and the possibility to become a forum for advocacy and a platform for practical, tangible action, whether to deal with climate action or to deal with logistics and diplomacy, as explained very well by Eriks and Pierre and Mr. Castorio. I also believe that Eurasia dialogue can be the springboard that brings forward, as it evolves and moves, a discussion and a conversation between women leaders in Eurasia, and the presence of strong leadership, women leadership from Dr. Bakai, and I also want to recognize Farkhanda Nadari, the former member of parliament from Afghanistan, who is with us today, that women bring a different style of leadership that seeks to find unique solutions to common challenges. And I think bringing together women leadership in Eurasia together to deliberate on the common challenges that this region faces would be an important task forward for this Eurasia dialogue. I think I'll stop here. Thank you very much, Dr. Bakai.
Women leadership it is, and you can't have a discussion on Eurasia and its potential without a view from Afghanistan. So I had the honor and pleasure of inviting Ms. Farkhanda Nadri to the podium. I and Farkhanda also go back. We're both a part of Track 2 diplomacy between Pakistan and Afghanistan, and it is more women like Farkhanda who should be on decision-making tables and in corridors of power. So a view from Afghanistan on Eurasia. Farkhanda, the floor is yours.
First of all, I'd like to thank, starting by thanking actually Yves. He was very much described by Mr. Alex, that he is the person who is connecting different people in the right place. And I think a European person, a good friend of Asia, that is coming to a dialogue of Eurasia. And after Yves, I would thank Professor Pierre for getting me involved in Eurasia dialogue to reconnect me back to our own region. And that takes me to thank now Mr. Segal for his kind invitation. I'm happy to be in this dialogue today. I'm here as a citizen of Afghanistan, and it's very important that we have to keep thinking, talking about the citizenship. And I'm looking forward that soon we are going to have a representative of Afghanistan, especially from Parliament of Afghanistan, to represent the people of Afghanistan, all people, especially the brave women of Afghanistan, who are inside the country right now, I think not giving resilience to women like me, but to the women of our region and to the women of the world. And I'm looking forward to that day, that such a discourse would go back to our country, to my country. I want to say our country because I think when you go in politics and you say too much me, then you get the ownership from others. So I want to keep reminding myself, even though we are all selfish and we do this, and it's all from subjective perspective that we want to go to this objectivity. But it is important that they can take this discourse to the Parliament of Afghanistan and to take it to the all different parts of Afghanistan. The same thing goes to Pakistan, to all our region, to all our neighborhood, that it has to start from the local, to national, to regional, and go to the continent. And I'm happy to have the correct definition of continent, I believe, that man-made definition. EurAsia is the correct one, that it's all one. And it takes us to those I think, accepted notion of the UN Charter and the values that we talk about. Regardless of our differences, regardless of our diversity, we all have values. And we can work for that value through diplomacy, exchanging culture, business, services. And I think for the countries like Afghanistan, we really need to build on the infrastructure, and that can be done only through connectivity. You know that in your neighborhood, Afghanistan is the landlocked country, but at the same time, it's a crossroad. It's a crossroad that I personally believe there is no EurAsia if there is not Europe or Asia, and there is no Asia if there is not connection between South Asia, Central Asia, and going to East and bringing all together to really talk about this term that we use it as a verb to define it through the existence of our citizenships. So I'm so pleased today to say that we are already, with all this landlocked location, we already have started some of the projects that I think one of them I can talk about CASA 1000. I can talk about, mention Total, Lapis Lazuli corridor. These are the parts that it's good that it started, but we need to move forward and complete our mission. I think the mission can go to the government, to the citizens, to different policymakers. It's a combination of all groups working together. And I know, as I mentioned, that in Afghanistan right now we are in a very complicated situation. But one of the things that teaches from history is there's this resilience. I'm very thankful for the magazine that was given to me by Mr. Saeed, I believe, Sadiq Malik, and the article that he wrote, and I really liked it, the part that he mentioned about South Asian citizens to be very competitive. And I believe that, our region are very ambitious people, and now we have ambitious projects. And I believe if we give the right tools to our people and citizens, through their competitiveness, they can get the highest level, depending on what kind of tool we give them. Now we have these ambitious projects, Central Asia and South Asia and EurAsia together, that I'm hoping we use the potential of our human resource to bring better services, better goods, and also connectivity of human to human. And I'm looking forward to see that we can have a very safe neighborhood in our region. We can talk about ideas, services, rather than fears, challenges. And today I actually had a question, and I'm taking this opportunity to put that question on. Minister Rahman actually made a good point today about the climate change crisis. And I believe what I really liked, she highlighted and made everyone responsible in the room that is not, we shouldn't put everything on God, because, you know, I think God would just look at us and say that, why did I create you all if you put everything on me? So she made it very clear that it is man-made, so I can say human-made first, but especially by men, I suppose. And I just wanted to say today that I'm sorry to say this, since the room is dominated by men, I allow myself to say this. If it was dominated by women, I wouldn't do that. So since it's dominated by men, I have to say that there are more crises created by men. So, and I agree with what she said today, that we have to work together to overcome this crisis. And I personally believe this is true. We have to work on the local level, we have to work on the national level. I, as an Afghan, before going to any part, I want to put the first pressure on me as an Afghan and to us as Afghan. And then we go to other elements. And then on the national level, then we have to have regional connectivity in order to move into global connectivity. If we don't have regional connectivity, it's impossible that we can go to the global level. So that's why I wanted to ask her today that I agree with her. But do we have any regional program to overcome these problems? Because let's not forget, such a flood adds to poverty. 33 million population is huge. And if there's not immediate relief, we know that we add to extremism and terrorism. And we know that all the citizens are the victims, but especially women. I'm not here to victimize women, because I already mentioned to you that the women who are inside my country, they are the token of hope to any level that we can take it. But we have to talk about security. And security doesn't have one dimension. It's got different dimensions. So through this connectivity, how we can connect ourselves better, what are the lessons learned? It's important. If I don't want to have lesson learned and forget everything about the past, I'm going to repeat the past again. But to go through a constructive dialogue or want to be more successful, we need to really work throughout lesson learned. Because I know Afghans are so ambitious, and I know that our neighbors, Pakistan people are very ambitious. And then if I go around the neighborhood of Afghanistan, we are all ambitious, but we need to use this ambitiousness. We need to know it, that our next generation is not going to repeat what we did. And we are repeating what our previous generation actually did. And if there's some changes, it's because the world has changed. It is not 21st century, but it's also the second decade of the 21st century. So anyways, I'm going to stop here. I took this opportunity to actually cover my question from that time as well. Thank you for your attention.
More power to the women in Afghanistan, more power to the women in Pakistan, more power to women. We need to be in corridors of power. We need to be in decision-making tables to make this a better world. So thank you for that, Farkhanda. And with that, I am going to get a view from the United States on the discussion that has just happened. So I have the honor and pleasure of inviting Ms. Elizabeth, who's the Director of South Asian Affairs at the Stimson Center. So let's hear what she has to say about EurAsia.
Thank you so much. It really is a pleasure to be here. I'm grateful for the invitation. Thanks to the SACC, to KCFR, and of course to Mr. Sehgal, the founder of the piece today. Thank you very much. I don't know if I can offer a US view, but from the relative remove of Washington, D.C. perhaps, so thinking about how the world has unfolded over the past 12 months or so. We're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the invasion of Ukraine, which to my mind is an event that we are only starting to see the impact of. And when I was thinking today about EurAsia, it's a really big concept, but central to it in my mind is how the reverberations from Ukraine are likely to evolve over the coming years. And I think maybe in the context of this conversation, there's some good news, but some storm clouds on the horizon as well, that it's wise to bear in mind, because as you all and others are interested in encouraging trade, building connectivity, obviously those are dynamics that you'll have to grapple with as well. So as I see it, right, EurAsia is a region, particularly Central Asia, perhaps a slightly more expansive version thereof. It's traditionally been Russia's sphere of influence. This is an area where Russia has dominated as a security provider. It is a post-Soviet space. And we have seen examples time and again since the Russian invasion where Russia has been less capable of playing that role. Meanwhile, other entrants are finding their way into South Asia, or excuse me, into EurAsia. And so that time of flux is something that we will all need to grapple with as we think about trade and connectivity in the years ahead. So a little bit more specifically, right? What has changed in terms of Russia's role in the region? Again, it's early days. We don't know how the war in Ukraine will play out. I think to my mind, Russia will emerge weaker from the conflict. The question is how much weaker and in what ways? And what does that mean? So we've seen these symptoms already where Russia, desperate for troops to add to the conflict in Ukraine, has actually withdrawn its troops from places like Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Armenia, Georgia as well. So less military presence on the ground. And I think overall, that is a trend we're likely to see continue. And with it, we remove that lid, if you will, from the region, right, of this net security provider. There is liable to be some flux. And indeed, we've seen that just over the past 12 months. So look at Armenia and Azerbaijan. Russia actually received quite a bit of praise back, I believe it was in 2020, when that first happened in Nagorno-Karabakh. It just recently reemerged. And there's active fighting, but Russia has not been able to step in and enforce the agreement that was reached. I think that's something that would have been a different story had we not seen the invasion of Ukraine. There was that negotiated agreement, but I think going forward it's suspect of how effective it's going to be. We saw the protests earlier last year in Kazakhstan, where Russia did actually send troops to try to intervene, but a sign of some of kind of the societal pressures that have sprung up across the region and seem likely to continue with these shifting winds. Likewise, border skirmishes that have played out between Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. There is a disputed border between the two, and these are areas where, again, Russia's role as a net security provider has traditionally helped to keep a lid on things, even if not resolve the underlying source of the conflict. And lastly, we're just hearing, of course, about the situation in Afghanistan, and the Taliban regime has created problems not just internally, but with, at this point, all of its neighbors, as unfortunately Pakistan has seen all too well through the impact of the TTP. So to my mind, that is a range of issues that is unlikely to resolve itself smoothly in the near term, and in fact we might see additional conflict in the year ahead. With that though, as you remove some of the Russian influence, not all of course, but it diminishes, we're seeing states like Turkey and Iran and China come to play a greater role in the region. I think to this we could also add the EU as a bloc, though perhaps that gets a little bit less attention. We've seen Turkey's influence in what's playing out in Armenia and Azerbaijan. Iran, with its weapon sales, I think is becoming a greater player even as it faces protests at home. And then China. So even as Russia and China inked the so-called No Limits Partnership back in February 4th of last year, I think we've seen a growing power imbalance between the two. I really found it notable that after years of COVID lockdown, Chinese President Xi Jinping made his first foreign trip to Kazakhstan, of all places, the heartland of Russia's sphere of influence in Central Asia. So I think there's likely to be some competition between the two in that space in the years ahead. So again, this is a moment of flux, right? With flux comes challenges, but also opportunities. And to my mind, that makes it all the more important to invest in regional trade, regional connectivity, to ask as something of ballast against these broader challenges that are coming up on the horizon. But with that, we need to be realistic about what's possible, about the threats that are out there, because otherwise it could be a recipe for unrealized expectations. I think the last thing that I will add, right, is we talk a lot about EurAsia, but it's also important to look a little bit closer to home. And my hope is that this broader push for connectivity will see Pakistan looking not just to its north and to its west, but to its east as well, where there is massive opportunity and massive market. I know there is a lot of challenges there too, but at this moment where so much of the discourse focuses on deglobalization, on nearshoring, on friendshoring, choose your term, to the extent that those in this room are interested in pushing against that grain, there is opportunity to be found both near and far. Thank you.
I will now invite Eris Nenville for his words as a private individual, not as a diplomat. He is a former diplomat. But just a word on what you just said. We look towards the West and want to resolve that all the time. Despite all the problems, the dialogue remains on the table. And only day before yesterday, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif offered talks to India yet once again. So Pakistan is now actually looking for functional relations with all its neighbors because the thrust is towards geo-economics and not geopolitics. So thank you so much. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm not a former diplomat, but I'm a former DHM, and I'm talking about in my individual capacity. I want to thank you all, and especially Ivan Sahib, also the people who came from France and from Le Havre, from the University of Le Havre, they produced together this very promising event. And we made a party of friends and people who are using to work together, Pakistani, French, Afghan, and we made all this possible. I wanted to come back on something that was said this morning. Back in August, I was still at the embassy, War Embassy in Pakistan. We got a call from Paris, and President Macron was coming back from Algeria. And in his plane, he asked notes about two crises. One was Ukraine, and the other one was the Pakistan floods. Why those two? Because it's not Ukraine, it's a world crisis. We spoke about it. It's not only Pakistan, it's a world crisis. And Pakistan, like it was said very well this morning, it's not this flood is not only about Pakistan. It will not stay in Pakistan. It's a whole world concern. And France was the initiator of this idea to have a special conference in Geneva. President Macron discussed about it with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif in New York. And also, France will send teams of people on the ground, soldiers, fire brigades, doctors, medics. They went where the floods were happening. And back in France, they campaigned about, because as she said, it's not only a state-to-state, government-to-government. It must be also a decentralized cooperation. She spoke, Mr. Rehman spoke about NGO. We have to speak also about the region. And the region of France, they mobilized. And then Normandy is a region of France. Le Havre is a major city of Normandy. This is also important information. this decentralized cooperation. Those people came from all provinces of France on the ground to bring relief and to bring also the technical machine against the floods. And there was a real mobilization of the opinion in France about what happened in Pakistan. Then I wanted to underline this. I'm very supporting of what said Ambassador Faruqi. This Eurasian dialogue, let's make it also even more profound to go with concrete also developments and also on this women dimension, which is so important. I think you understand it very, very well. And thank you for all, and see you soon, because we will go on with this Eurasian dialogue around the initiated by Le Havre city.
So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being such patient listeners. We've heard views from almost across the globe, and just a few words that I want to say here is that Pakistan's foreign policy has been about constraints and compulsions. And we constantly work towards creating opportunities and options. EurAsia is both an opportunity and an option. And how Pakistan wants to be viewed as a geo-economic state and not just a geostrategic state. And how difficult it is for Pakistan to make that transition. So our thrust is to have functional relations with all our neighbors, have a geo-economic thrust to our policies, to get over the economic meltdown that Pakistan is struggling with right now, and floods have only added to the problem. Having said this, the potential that exists is unbelievable. Pakistan still has what I call the golden chair. The Russians call us the zipper state. We are a zipper state, which can bring these two continents together and untap the potential not just for Pakistan, but perhaps half of the world. And we constantly talk about cooperation, because in today's world, with climate change and other poly-crises that we've been hearing about today, confrontation is not even an option. And with that, I will request Ikram Saidal to say a few words and capstone the discussion.
Thank you, and of course, we are very lucky to have three eminent people from the Harvard University, organized by our friend Steve Manuel here. And of course, I thank the guest lecturer from Pavilion from Dublin. That underscores the importance of what we're talking about, and of course, Elizabeth coming all the way from the States to give a perspective in the United States. The thing is, for a long time, I've been to EurAsia. And well, thanks to circumstances, Pakistan, which was a part of South Asia, literally was denied South Asia because India's dominance of the region. So we became a country which is part of South Asia, but not a part of South Asia, which is supposedly part of the Middle East, North Africa thing, we're not a part of it. Or Central Asia, which of course was a little, let's say, going too far. But we were a part at one time of the Baghdad Pact, and then we became CENTO, and we became ultimately the Regional Cooperation and Development, and now known as the Economic Cooperation Organization, and we have roads and networks of trade already existing, which have to be upgraded. So, let me tell you, the gentleman today who was sitting in the Pakistan Breakfast Mirror Music, he started with the help, I would say, the persuasion of Mr. Bob Bradley, who is the main director of, or rather CEO of the World Economic Forum, and they made EurAsia a central group. And they made Pakistan a part of the group, because they realized that we were not part of South Asia, we were not part of North Africa and Central Asia. So then, okay, you're part of this new group. It played wonderfully for us, because, thank God for Mr. Modi, who is denying us access to South Asia and Southeast Asia. So it works vice versa. We became a gateway for EurAsia, and thanks to Eve's I was able to travel to Lahore, and the moment I landed by train to Lahore, and here helped me take my baggage to the hotel, I can never forget it. That's something that Gaurav said, Lahore became something very special. So, dream to come true. And I said, we have this gateway, EurAsia gateway, which will develop in the future, I'm sure. And we're having something in March in Pakistan. But I want to thank you, Huma, for having compared this session.